You don't have to go into hiding for 3 months or 6 months or burn down your existing life to completely 10x your self-concept and your identity. In this video, I'm going to teach you 3 secrets on how you can completely shift your identity without going into hiding. As a wife and mother and 8-figure entrepreneur, I think my family, friends, and clients would notice if I had to completely go into hiding and disappear to shift my reality. I consider myself the queen of reinvention and transformation. Since I was 16, I have been reinventing my life and moving and leveling up in new higher calibrated seasons. And I didn't really have to go into hiding to do that. So I'm going to actually teach you 3 secrets. This video is actually my kickoff to 100 days of wealthy woman reinvention that I'm launching here. I was looking at my calendar the other day and I realized there's about 113 days left until the end of the year. What perfect timing to reset our self-concept, our identity, change our physical appearance, our environment, change the way that we're thinking, our state. We're going to be diving deep into different areas of our life that we can level up. In the next 100 days, we're going to be going into different areas of our life that we can up level from the inside out. So in this kickoff video, we're going to talk about 3 big secrets that you need to work through to embody your next level of self-concept and identity. Your self-concept is the number one thing we need to work in because this is the identity that you live in. A lot of people try to add on all of these goals or intentions for themselves, but before they know it, they're back to self-sabotaging because they actually did not change that core self-concept. So secret number 1 when it comes to your self-concept is that your self-concept has little to do with you and everything to do with your internal audience. So the internal audience is an evolutionary mechanism that we all have. There's a beautiful saying that we all need someone to be someone for. And what this means is because we used to live in these very small tribes and our core survival was so closely tied to our tribe, it really mattered to us what other people thought about us. And it really mattered to us that we didn't do anything that would upset the collective tribe. So because of this, what happened is we all formed this inner voice. A lot of people call this the inner critic, except it's not one voice. It's a collection of voices that mimic our imaginary tribe. So what this internal audience does is it looks at our everyday behaviors and tries to guess if any of these things are going to be outside the norm of our tribe and make us to either do more of those things or less of those things, depending on if it thinks that this could threaten our survival. Now, where it gets really interesting is that those internal voices really do mimic our outside voices. So whatever your parents or your friends or your teachers were saying to you became that internal audience. So each member of this imaginary internal audience mimics outside things. And what happens is whatever tribe you spend the most time in, you start taking in the voices of that tribe. This is why it really is very difficult to outlive the norms of whatever your group is. This is why people feel like they have to isolate themselves and go away into hiding or move away from their hometown to actually have change. And yes, all of those things are very efficient. The problem is that what if you are a wife and a mom and you love your family and your current friends and you don't want to constantly be moving away from your city or, letting go of your friends to have that next level? What you're going to have to learn to do is be able to shift your internal audience, which will then change your self-concept without changing your actual environment just yet. And luckily, we do live in this age where we have access to so much knowledge and so many masterminds and groups outside of the environment that we currently live in, where those voices will start becoming your internal audience. So for example, let's say that I live in an environment where people are lazy, they waste time, they don't really have big dreams. And every time I try to do something big, either they verbally bring me down, or that internal audience brings me down, that if you do this you're not going to fit in, and it tries to sabotage me, because that is my internal tribe right now. Well, one thing I could do without actually isolating myself is, what if I started reading books and following mentors and coaches and groups and communities online that actually mimic the new internal audience that I want to have? So even though I might be in the moment hearing this conflicting voices from here, because I'm starting to spend more time and energy in these new groups, those groups will start becoming my internal audience. And if you need more support with this, I actually have an entire framework on how you can change your internal audience in my Persecution Wound course, which I will link in the description box. So to recap, the number one thing you need to focus on if you want to change your self-concept is not just what you think about yourself, because what you think about yourself is actually closely tied to that imaginary internal audience that you have. Start noticing what happens when you start moving towards your goals. What are the voices in your head? What are the stories that you're telling? What meanings are you assigning different things? And you'll start seeing what's happening. This is why, if you notice, a lot of people start asking themselves questions like, what would Mina do? Or what would Tony Robbins do in this situation? What would Jesus do? They do this because what they're trying to do is purposely adding a new internal audience, a new lens from which to see the world, instead of the one that they've currently been looking. This is especially important if you are a content creator and you have an audience online. You want to be careful and not let your audience comments start to take over your internal audience, especially if you tend to attract people that are in a lower consciousness than you are. Because of the way we're wired, we start absorbing whoever we are starting to deem as our tribe and our community. This is why it's so important to be in rooms where there's a lot of people at your level or even ahead of you, so those people will start becoming your internal audience. In fact, I think one of the biggest secrets to my success is I intentionally evaluate and cultivate my internal audience. It is so easy to get caught up in all of the negativity and all of the comments and all of that stuff and start altering your life, your lifestyle, your thoughts, your content based on that. But what I've done is, in the last decade, I've intentionally put myself into rooms where people were similar or ahead of me. In fact, I've been doing that for longer than that. When I went to Northwestern University, that was such a huge power move for me, because I had never met people like that. The way I grew up, the people that I had access to, they weren't like that. And so being in those rooms with people that were different than me helped me really expand my mind. And in the last decade, I've intentionally placed myself in coaching and mentorship containers where people are at my level or above. So I'm filling up my head with that internal audience. In fact, in 2024 alone, I was in 14 different groups and masterminds. I'm constantly surrounded by people that are playing a bigger game than me. And now that can come with its own shadows, right? Like, a lot of people in those groups can go into comparison, they can go into envy. But I like to start thinking of, what are the power moves that these people are making that I'm not making yet? What are the things that these people are doing that's different than me? And so they become my internal audience, and I start saying, what would this person do? What would that person say in that situation? So I'm not limited by only the people in my immediate vicinity. Now, I get it, not everyone is extreme like me and wants to live like that, but I like to look at my life as this extreme elite level game that I'm playing, where I get to unlock new layers and levels of myself, new levels of identity, new levels of money, new levels of pleasure and joy. And so, call me crazy, but this is just what I do as a obsessed huntress. I look for places where I'm not playing big games, and I start putting myself in rooms where people are playing big games, and then I play those games. That's why I've created Guy Not Success Academy, because I wanted a group of women to have access to other women that were playing it big in their careers and their business, and having romantic relationships with tons of polarity, and building legacy wealth, and being the best mothers and the best versions of themselves. There was this really cool and interesting study done at Northwestern University that found that people who were sitting within 25 feet of high performers, their performance went up by 15%. And those people that were sitting within low performers, their performance went down by 30%. So who you're hanging out with really matters more than you think, especially if you're spending a lot of time with these people, because you will start taking on their voices as your internal audience. I have managed to upgrade and level up without cutting people off because of this very important nuance, is that I don't have to cut people off. I just have to downgrade their voices in my consciousness and replace them with the voices that I do want as my internal audience. Secret number 2 to changing your identity and self-concept so that you can really step into that next level of wealthy woman era for yourself is to change your frame. The frame of our life is what we're looking at and what meanings we're assigning. So a lot of women come in saying, I'm blocked when it comes to making money, or I'm blocked when it comes to starting my business, or I'm blocked for whatever. And I instantly change their frame from I'm blocked to I'm unskilled, because this is going to be so much more beneficial for your self-concept. When you think you're blocked, you start looping in constant inner work. Hey, as the inner work queen, I believe in inner work, but I think that a lot of people are using inner work really to hold themselves back. I see this with pretty much everything. I don't know what it is about some people, but there's people like me where we'll come in contact with human design or self-concept or identity or inner work, and we take it and we roll with it and we use it to completely transform our lives. And then there's some people where they'll find the same concept and use it to victimize themselves or hold themselves back. So I believe in learned optimism. In fact, there is a beautiful book by this name. And by the way, if you're looking for books to read, I have an Amazon store where I put all of my favorite books, and you can find this at minaamazon.com. I'll go ahead and link that in the description box. All of my favorite books are linked there for you. So in Learned Optimism, he talks about how optimism is something that you can train yourself for. So what happens with this is when I come in contact with something new that I'm doing and upgrading my identity, I'm learning new skills, I don't look at it as I'm blocked. Just like when I was a baby and I was learning to walk, I didn't say I'm blocked, I keep falling, I just learned how to walk. When I was learning to ride a bike, I didn't say I was blocked, I was just learning to ride a bike. So the same thing goes with anything in business, anything with technology, anything in sales or marketing or in my life. I'm just learning. I'm unskilled. And when I'm learning, it's going to be a little bit hard, right? I'm going to let it be as easy as possible, but I'm not going to sit there and make up stories about why I'm blocked. Inner work for me happens through outer work, through doing things, through moving forward, through making power moves, through creating momentum in my life. And so I really want you to change this frame from I'm blocked or I'm broken or I need tons of inner work to I'm doing inner work by taking action, by being in new rooms, by doing things that I've never done before, by going from unskilled to skilled. Secret number 3 to changing your self-concept and identity is to not constantly be burning down, but bridging your blessings. This is a big one because every time we think about, oh, I have to start all over again, like there's this feeling of you have nothing to start with. You're at zero. And then it feels like such a big mountain to climb. There was this movie, I can't remember the name, but it was a guy, he went hiking. I don't know if you guys can figure out the movie name, but he fell and got trapped in between like two boulders or something. And the first thing he did was he took out, when he realized he was trapped, he took out everything from his pockets. So he emptied out his pockets and he laid out whatever few things he had. This is the mindset that I want you to have. You're never really starting over. I mean, really think about it. When you're born, you already have DNA and programming, okay? You took everything from your parents and your grandparents. So are you ever starting over, right? And so even when you're shifting careers, even when you're going from one life situation to another one, if you're in the middle of a big transition, how are you starting over when you already have skill sets that you've embodied, when you've already been through things, there's already cultural things that you know, there's already things that you have overcome. When we look at it as I'm skill stacking, I'm adding, I'm using everything that I have, I'm going to empty out my pockets, see all the skills that I have, and then build on top of it, that feels so much more doable. It feels so much more encouraging. It doesn't feel like such a huge uphill battle. And so I want you to completely give up this concept of I'm starting over, I'm burning everything down. You're not burning anything down. There's no need. Even in these 100 days of transformation that we're doing, are we starting over? No. We have so much information, so much knowledge. We have so many things we've already embodied, and we're just building on top of that. That's how we're actually able to jump timelines and quantum shift, not by acting like we're a baby and we don't know what we're doing, by saying I'm a grown woman that has all of these amazing skill sets and now I'm ready to step into my next level. So are you with me in these 100 days? Let me know if you are joining me. We're going to be posting every single day for the next 100 days and completely step into the wealthy woman transformation. And so let me know if you're in, and I'll see you tomorrow.